Maggie Moon. Thank you for joining me for this week's Witches and Wine Goblets. I decided to change the name from Witches and Wine to Witches and Wine Goblets because Witches and Wine, I kind of feel like it's pressuring witches to drink wine, and a lot of witches don't drink wine. And I don't drink wine very often. And so I was using this as an opportunity to have a social glass of wine with fellow witches, but it is by no means mandatory whatsoever that the witch drink wine. How about we just pull out our wine goblets and share a beverage? I'm enjoying a nice relaxing glass, and I am so very much looking forward to this upcoming interview with a lady that I absolutely love. She is my soul sister, and I admire her so much. Miss Zeraphina Angelus is joining me today, and we are going to be tackling some of the viewers' questions that have been presented to us. And we're going to have a casual chit-chat, and I hope you enjoy this. Greetings, Zeraphina. Thank you so very much for joining me. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you, and I'm excited for this week's Witches and Wine Goblets because we have some awesome questions that people have asked us.
We do. Thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, thank you. So the first question is directed to both of us. Should I use automatic writing, divination, or channeling to ask Mother Lilith questions, since I can't do an evocation to her since I have a very God-loving family in my home?
Yeah. So would you like to start, Maggie, or shall I?
Okay, I'll start really quick if that's okay, unless you wanted to. You're the guest.
No, you're welcome to.
Okay. I don't think that you really have to worry about that. I find when Mother Lilith or any of the spirits really communicate with us, they do so within our psyche through inspiration, thoughts, symbols, sometimes like direct communication, smells and things like that. It can all be done internally. And that's how I do it most of the time. How about you?
I completely agree. And I think, it is really difficult when you are in a situation where you don't have the privacy or the space to, carry out full rituals and full invocations, evocations. But there, like you say, there are a number of ways that the spirit will communicate with you and let you know what you need to know. But there are other ways that you can really subtly invoke a spirit as well. So, for example, taking a ritual bath has been something that I kind of rave about quite a lot, and it's a great way to gain gnosis. And nobody in your family would know better than you saying, well, I'm just taking a hot bath, I'm taking a bubble bath, but or a salt bath because I've got sore muscles. And actually, you can turn it into a ritual bath, just having it candlelit, maybe putting on some deep trance relaxation music or high vibrational frequency music, and maybe just even thinking about chanting the N silently or in your own mind, and focusing on connecting with that spirit. And that could be a great way just to give yourself that time to fully relax and connect.
Absolutely. That's awesome advice. And that's the majority of what I do as well. We discussed this previously. Like, that can be such an amazing, quiet, alone time where you can do rituals. And you're right. No one would be the wiser. So that's amazing advice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The next question. Any advice on working with Beelzebub?
Be prepared that Beelzebub will show you what you need to know, but not necessarily what you want to see. I think that one of the main things that he will do is to reveal people for who they are in your life. So he'll reveal the things and the people in your life that aren't serving you. So I think that you have to be committed to knowing that you might go through a fairly difficult transformation period, but in the knowledge that it'll be worth it on the other side.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I find he will really show you aspects of things that you were avoiding looking at, perhaps, or suppressing. You know, those will come to light. And if possible, I would suggest people sort of do the work first on healing any past traumas or any issues that they've been avoiding dealing with as much as possible before undertaking these type of workings, particularly with Beelzebub. We're always having things brought to the surface when we do these works anyway. As we grow, it's a state of evolution, really, and growing while we do it. But if we get a lot of that stuff that we've been avoiding our whole lives up until now out of the way first, I think that could save us a lot of time and a lot of work,
heartache.
You know?
Definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The next question, what are the consequences for breaking the veil which regulates reality?
So I would say once you do, whether it's, you know, through starting to practice, ritual, or whether it's starting to practice witchcraft or perform rituals or contact spirits in any way, if that's what the person means by breaking the veil, I guess you've just got to be prepared that reality will change, that, you know, it's easier to open it than it is to close it, and it's easier to have your eyes opened to a whole other world and a whole other existence being a reality than it is to kind of going back to thinking that things are just what we can see, smell, hear, and touch and taste. You know, it's something that you have to be prepared for. It will change your perception or your ability to see the world as it really is, rather than how you kind of always thought it was. That makes sense.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I, was thinking to this question. I mean, once you open those floodgates, they're not closable afterwards. You know, you can ignore them and try to adjust, but once the door has been open, it's open, and it changes you, and it changes how you perceive everything. So yes.
And the spirits don't go anywhere either. They stay. You know, they don't just kind of come and go by invitation. You know, once you've worked closely with any entity, they're going to be a part of you and a part of your life for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Absolutely. How can black magic, witchcraft help with depression?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And you know, we've talked a lot about the fact that I've suffered or I've struggled with depression and anxiety most of my life. And you know, there are so many different aspects to this question and different ways that I could answer, but I would say it can help you to determine the things in your life that are causing the depression. I think, and I'm actually thinking of, I'm planning to do a video about this soon, which is that I think a lot of the time occultists or people practicing in the occult will think that anything that's affecting them negatively is a hex or a curse. But in fact, it's often rooted in something that we can control ourselves. So working with the gatekeepers and performing any sort of magic can help us to identify the things in our life that we need to change in order to feel happy. The other aspect to it that I would say is that sometimes there are things like hexes and curses involved, and sometimes if someone is feeling particularly low and they can't really determine the reason for it, it can be that there's a negative entity attached to them. So things like psychic and spiritual hygiene and, performing banishing rituals can really help to kind of clear away anything external that might be affecting us and our mood.
Absolutely. That was a great answer. You covered everything there. And times when we start working with witchcraft and stuff and we're depressed, I've noticed for some more like past traumas and things like that. So again, I would go back to the advice to take the precautions like you said, like it's not always a curse, but also to look for the signs if it is something attached to you and do all the work that you need to do to become balanced, healthy, happy, and whole again, because engaging in these practices do tend to bring up stuff that we've been avoiding looking at. So I have a friend in particular, he'll dive in and then get all these triggers, and then he'll disappear for a while and deal with that and then dive back in. And if that's the way it works for some people, that's good. It's whatever, find your style of what you can cope with. I found when I was going through a particularly hard time in life, like these practices really, I say saved me, but I know it enabled me to save myself. It gave me that control back, the power of my own life and the power of manifesting the life that I want, like just taking my hands back on the steering wheel of my life. And that was huge. So, and overcoming these trials, and these trials were my own trials. I don't really, like the spirits will help reveal certain things to help you go through them. And, you either sink or swim, and it's never, I don't feel it's their intention to, like I've been saying to people close to me, these things don't present themselves to destroy you. They present themselves so that you can work on it and grow.
Yeah, definitely.
So my advice is it can help. It can be such a blessing, and you get that power back and the control, and you put the spotlight inside and do the work, and you come out the other side all the better for it. So,
absolutely.
Awesome. Have you met any immortals?
So I wasn't sure exactly what this individual means by immortals. I mean, I consider all of the ancient gods, all of the demons to be immortal, but I wasn't sure if there were a specific type of immortal that was meant from this.
Yeah, that was the question, just like that. So I was approaching it from the same lens that you are.
Yeah.
So have you met any ancient spirits?
I mean, yeah. So I mean, I've met several, and through invocation, and sometimes just because they've presented themselves to me, and in particular, the demonic gatekeepers, and some archangels as well, and then some other spirits, some other immortal spirits like Mary Magdalene, and certainly that wasn't something that was planned on my part, but she very much came through to me during ritual and presented herself to me. So yeah, I've that I would say yes.
And what was that like?
It was interesting because at the time I was researching different goddesses, and when as far as I was thinking kind of in terms of my intentions about who I would want to research and who I would want to look into, I was thinking about Lilith and Kali and Hecate, and then all of a sudden Mary Magdalene kept coming through. And so I guess I realized that, she is a goddess in her own right. She was considered this, potentially either a prostitute or some sort of sorceress in the Bible. And there's very little known about her. She's very kind of shrouded in mystery, and I think there's a lot that is hidden about her. So she intrigues me all the more. But yeah, definitely a spirit that I'd like to connect with again more intentionally and actually find out some more about.
Nice, awesome. Let me know how that goes, because
That's
interesting. This one you'll be quoting on the topic of parenting and black magic, and this question is in alignment with that. My question is, I have a young child at home. As a newly left-hand path practitioner, what are some ways that I can protect him or recommend I can do in my home to keep him safe?
So, I mean, it's a controversial one. A lot of occultists would say don't perform any sort of black magic in the home. If you can perform it outside or in a different space, if you can have your altar in a different place than your home. I don't necessarily follow that. I mean, it's just not practical for me. So there are certainly ways that you can add that protection in your own home. And there have been times that I've been afraid that it's affected my child and that she's seen things and heard things that have scared her. So there are a couple of things that I would recommend. One is, using cedar oil is very good. So to put some cedar oil around, even like a little bit on her clothing, my daughter, and around the headboard of her bed, around her bedroom, and visualizing a kind of light around her and holding her close and cyclically telling any spirits that are around us or in my home that they do not have the right to contact her or to allow her to see or sense them until she's of an age where she can make that conscious decision. And that, I'm in charge here. She's my child. You do not have the right to interact with her without my permission, kind of thing. So you can do that. And another thing is to get your child involved in things like, sometimes we'll take a bowl of salt water and I'll talk her through. I'll talk about energy and negative energy, and she'll see me saging the house and she'll want to join in, and we'll talk about visualizing that white light going into the bowl of salt water, and kind of she'll help me sprinkle that around the house. And I guess education is everything, really. If we can teach our kids ways to protect themselves and to practice spiritual hygiene from a very young age, then whether or not they end up wanting to follow us on this path, they will have an idea of how to protect themselves. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. That's very great advice. Yeah, that's awesome. I couldn't have given better advice than that. My son, who's a little bit older, the younger one doesn't really notice so much, but I have my son who's now 13. He's very aware, psychically aware, and he picks up on these things. I could just, like when he was really young, I could read something preparing for a ritual when I was in a coven, and I was a high priestess. Sometimes I would just go over, what I had to do the night. And just from practicing that, he would feel the energies coming in and come in and be like, Mom, and so sometimes he does pick up on things. So, but he's also at this age where he's like, oh, whatever, I don't believe in any of that stuff, and and so it's fine. He's too cool for all that. That's fine. And but he does have sage spray that I made for him by his bed. So if he ever hears anything or feels uneasy, he sprays it. And also he knows that he's allowed to tell whatever may be around. You're not welcome here. You need to leave my space now. And his sage usually there's the hammer rite. So you call Thor in, and I've taught him that because he relates to Thor.
Yeah.
And, I let him know that I haven't noticed a being in any of the worlds that tend to not respond to the hammer rite. So he knows how to call the hammer into the different quarters and above him and below him, and ask Thor to guard and protect the home and whatever. And then he sleeps much better.
That's awesome.
And I also have a deal with most spirits, that, okay, you're coming to communicate with me. It is me that is seeking your wisdom. It's with me that you interact.
Yeah.
And my little ones are off limits for now until they make the choice.
Yeah, that's
if
it.
they do, and that works really well. And I have my higher self, my holy demon, whatever we want to call it. There's so many names for it. Knows to automatically go into action if that's our deal. I will do all that, and that if you sense anything, you shut it down. Because my boys are not ready. I have my daughter as well. She's 30 now, and she's very psychic, very witchy. But again, she fights it. She's, she used to be like, oh, I'm into science. I don't believe in any of your crap and stuff like that. But now she's being like, okay, yeah, mom's been too right too many times to deny it. And so she's gotten into the habit of, when things come around her, she's like, do you know who my mother is?
I'll get my mom on you.
Go deal with her. Yeah. So that's good. It's the way she empowers herself enough to, shut down whatever activity is going on. But it's my hope that one day she'll be open enough to learn, because like you said, knowledge is power. Teaching them and involving them, that's absolutely the best thing that we can do.
That's it. And it has to come from them at the end of the day. I think the more we kind of push and encourage our kids to be interested in certain things, they'll kind of push against us. Or, well, if they're anything like I was as a child and a teenager, I was interested in what I was interested in. That was that. And but I guess, whether or not they end up following the same path as us, certainly we can enhance their lives and know things and be able to do things that will help to protect and serve them, as long as we live and throughout their lives.
Yes, exactly. Just like all the other things that I can remember my parents teaching me that I thought were so annoying and that I would never use, like how to change a tire and why do I have to know this? And then, it all came in handy.
I wouldn't have a clue.
Well, good thing, we can call people for that stuff too now, when cell phones are everywhere. But the next question, where should I start working on the left-hand path as a beginner?
I think reading is something that you can start with. I think that, before you necessarily dive into working with spirits or any sort of rituals or invocations, I think getting a grasp of the basics through reading as much literature, occult literature, as you can, and through perhaps joining some groups on Facebook. There are a lot of groups on demonology and on black magic that you can see different posts and you can ask questions and kind of share ideas and get different opinions. So to really try and get that knowledge base covered first before you actually practice, and then when you feel ready to practice, there are kind of less overwhelming steps that you can take. Things like, perhaps starting to work with the tarot cards or divination, and starting to connect with your spirit guide or your own ancestors, perhaps doing some candle magic, for example, and some kind of less heavy stuff to begin with until you build up that confidence.
Absolutely, that's great advice. There's no need to start rushing into working and calling in, the different demonic forces and things like
Yeah.
that. Witchcraft is awesome. Developing a connection with, your entourage, as I call
Yeah.
them. We all have spirits that are around us that help us, and then of course our higher selves, like developing that first. And as you said, researching, reading, and draw from a variety of sources, like wisdom from everywhere, and
Yeah.
develop from there.
And build up your network as well. It is good to have people that you can call upon if you're worried about something, or you feel overwhelmed, or out of your depth with something. It's good to know people who are maybe a bit kind of further ahead in terms of their knowledge of their practice, that you can call upon for help, or for any sort of assistance when the time comes.
Absolutely. Great advice.
Yeah.
Which books on witchcraft and also on Luciferianism do each of you recommend for beginners and then for seasoned witches?
So I would have to be very biased, first of all, and say the complete works by E. Quetting. So this is a book. It's an absolutely huge book, which has everything from. It covers everything from the basics for beginners to more in-depth works for adepts, but certainly that's a really good one to start with. And some of the video courses on Become a Living God are really helpful as well. So things like the Black Magick video course, and then there's Mastering Evocation, there's Mastering Divination. There are lots of different, if you're more kind of interactive like that. Michael W. Ford is someone that I would definitely say has got some great works, and I actually have one of his books that I have not finished reading yet, but it's this one on vampire magic. And then another couple that I would recommend for beginners. So Ed Fitch has written A Grimoire of Shadows. Now, this is really quite an old book. It might not be in print as a new book anymore, but you might be able to get it in like thrift stores and things. But this is great. This is like one of the first books that I read, because it's got everything. It is all about the kind of basics of understanding. And yeah, let's see. I think it was, when was it printed? Well, first edition, 1997. Okay, it's not as old as I thought, but it's a beautifully written book, and it's got everything from lore to magical arts, rituals of passage, other rites and spells, seasonal rituals, magical training, and then if you want to learn more about demonology, then I have read S. Conley's complete book of demonology, which I'd recommend. And finally, this one is a really good one by Konstantinos. It's called Summoning Spirits, The Art of Magical Evocation. So those are a few. What would you recommend, Maggie? Is there anything else?
Those are great books, and I would highly recommend those books and those courses and books by Become a Living God. Absolutely. Like, that's a one-stop place where you can go and learn from, for the very beginner all the way up to the adept. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
For the beginner as well, there is a book, The Transcendent Keys to Power by Daniel Updike. I don't have them out here because I'm in my trailer and all my books are in the house. But The Transcendent Keys to Power is such an amazing book because it helps the beginner sort of work through all of the stuff that we need to work through when we are beginners, and release a lot of that baggage and indoctrinated thinking that we still have with us from mainstream religions, or even some of us coming out of Wicca. I recommended this book to quite a few people that were in my coven in the past, and they asked me what are some good books, and they read Transcending Keys to Power, and were messaging me like, wow, I thought I was on my way to like being free, but I didn't realize how much I still was carrying with me from that. So, and then it'll also walk you through communication with some friendly spirits that have agreed to work with beginners and get them started on their path. So that's a really good book as well. Of course, Michael W. Ford. I recommend all of his books. For the beginner, particularly his, Apotheosis is a great book. It's one of his easier reads too, I find. Because I've heard that from some people, like they've purchased his books and they're a little bit hard to get through at first for like the beginner.
Yeah.
So Apotheosis I found to be an easier read, but the Bible of the Adversary is really awesome. And Michael W. Ford, you can't go wrong. Legit, well researched, and of course I support that. If you head on over also to Troy Books, if you're interested in witchcraft or traditional witchcraft, they have a wide variety of books there. So I can't recommend one, maybe Traditional Witchcraft, a book of Cornish ways, if someone is interested in doing old style witchcraft on the left-hand path kind of style, which is really good. And you already covered a lot of great books, so I'll stop there, because when I start talking books, it's like opening up this big floodgate. I can
you can never have too many books.
Exactly. And there was a part 2 to that question. What motivates your path, and what motivates you to continue upon it?
So I think you reach a stage, or at least I reached a stage where I realized that it just it wasn't just my path, it was a part of me, and always has been, always will be. I don't think there's any such thing as separating myself from the occult now. It's just a part of me, and it's in my blood. What motivated me when I was younger was undoubtedly more selfish than what motivates me now. I think, when I was younger, it would have definitely been a wish to try and control things that I otherwise couldn't control, to influence my reality, which is the very essence of black magic. Now there's a different aspect to it, which is that I find that I can help other people, and that through my YouTube channel, or through any of my videos or my writing, if I'm able to help other people identify ways with which black magic can help them to get to a better place, or a place of more peace and more happiness in their lives, then that certainly keeps me going, and keeps me wanting to kind of give back and continue to talk out about my experiences, and to teach what I learn.
Absolutely. What motivates me to keep going is the peace it brings me to finally be myself, and accept myself and embrace it, because far too long I hid it, and fought it, hid it, and it was something that I did in the shadows, and I wasn't happy. And by just embracing who I am, it is helping me on all aspects of my life, as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, as well as a witch. And what motivates me to keep going, it's the results that I achieve, I guess you can say, like seeing that this stuff is real. It does produce results. It does help you transform into being more than what you were last week, yesterday, last year, and that's what keeps me going. that it is real and that I'm transforming, and and I'm being an example to others as well.
Yeah.
That's not so much why I do it, but it's kind of one of the perks, and more
Yeah.
importantly, I'm being an example to my children
Yeah.
that it's important to embrace who you are,
Mm-hmm.
even against what, the hard comes, the hard things to do, how you are perceived by your family. It's all worth it if you embrace your true calling in life. And I hope to instill that into them.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yes. So I think that was the last question. Yep, I doubt that there's anyone watching who doesn't know who you are by now, but in case there is someone that is new and just stumbled upon this video, what is the best way for people to find your videos, learn more about you, and do you have any services or products that you offer?
Yeah, thank you. So the best way to find me is either through my Facebook page, Zeraphina Angelus, or through YouTube. So I have my channel, which is Zeraphina Angelus as well. And I've got my website, which is zeraphinaangelus.com. It's all one word. And the best way to contact me is through one of those methods, and just to drop me an instant message or send me an email, contact@zeraphinaangelus.com. And yeah, I do. You'll see from my website that I offer various rituals, services, consultations, and readings. So yeah, happy to chat to anyone who has any questions.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And Zeraphina, thank you so very much for being a guest again on my channel.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
It's been an honor. Thank you. And I hope that I can have you back again in the future at some point.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome. And of course, I will leave a link in the description below to your website and to your YouTube channel and to your Facebook page.
Thank you.
And if anyone doesn't know, Zeraphina also writes for Become a Living God, and she has contributed to some of the compendiums that have been published and the upcoming Compendium of Satan, which will be released just around Yule, I think.
Yeah, I think it's it's at the end of December. So yeah, it's coming up very soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
And dark and wild blessings.
Thanks, Maggie. Bye.
And until next time, I wish you dark and wild blessings.